Welcome to the IoT Security Foundation ManySecured Working Group meeting. Today, we welcome you to our next generation router capability discussion, the impact it would make on continuous assurance and authentication, and other fascinating subjects which we think will be relevant to the industry as we try and improve what seems to be a real challenge as to how to secure the router and its network and associated IoT devices. Today, we welcome NquiringMinds from CSL Group, who's going to share with us what his company does. And after that, we'll have a question and answer session where we'll discuss what impact that might make and how we as a group can work together with companies like CSL and look together at how to explore and make a difference when we realize that we are all together facing a major, complex, difficult, and quite challenging situation. So thank you again for joining us. And without further ado, I'm handing over to Hiran now. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, my name's Hiran, and I head up the IoT Business Development and Partnerships world here at CSL. And I guess the discussion we're having today is of massive interest to us and as well as you guys. So we're a company that prides itself on security, and for IoT in particular, we class ourselves as a critical IoT communications company. And basically we have IoT solutions that encompass connectivity into our core, and we then have our own hardware that we then secure and have resilient connectivity on that we sell out to customers. So security is key for us. We've been in the industry for 25 years, and we power probably about 80% of the UK premises, commercial premises, with connectivity for fire alarms, access control, CCTV. So we're pretty well known in the UK market and across Europe where we've got other entities. So it's a really good discussion for us to have with you guys. I guess what I'll do is if I share a presentation that explains a bit about what we do in our product. Can you see that on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess a bit of a brief about us. So like I mentioned, that we've been around in the industry now for 25 years. We manage 3 million connections within the business. So this is connectivity that will go into our own fire alarm panels, for our own routers, but predominantly we're supplying the fire security in the telecare industry with connectivity. We're a market leader in critical communications. So we're, as I mentioned, we probably cover about 80% of the UK commercial premises with our connectivity. So we're pretty well known and really well established across the big corporate entities across the UK. And the sectors that we traditionally try and focus on are the fire security, the retail, critical national infrastructure, utilities, and telecare markets. We've got some large customers in this estate, right? So if I take the telecare market as an example, we're probably the #1 player in that space for connectivity. And what we do is we provide connectivity for devices that vulnerable people are wearing, right? So if they fall over, there's like fall detection. So you can imagine that these are critical life use cases. They always need to be working. They need to have resilience in the connection that we provide, but fundamentally also security, right? Because they're encompassed in lots of monitored platforms, and we have private tunnels linked between us and networks and the customers that we work with to make sure that we've got that security built. Probably, some of the customers to call out and the scale rollout. So like we've got on here, the post offices we supply connectivity to, and that's around 7,000 sites. We work with Thames Water for sub-water monitoring stations. We've got, as an example, in the retail sector, Poundland, and also TUI, the travel agent. So we've got a real breadth of types of customers that we work with. And then in the security space, we work with Johnson's Control. So JCR is one of our biggest customers. And then from the telecare side of things, Doro. So these are, or who are now known as NquiringMinds. These are like real big brands, established, and the fact that they come to us when they've got access to so many connectivity providers, including the mobile networks directly, sort of gives you the level of expertise that we're at, and the seriousness that we take around IoT security. This just highlights more of some of the brands that we work with. They're all well-known brands, and for us, it's really great to be involved in the discussions when we're talking about companies like this who provide what we class as critical use cases, and they're needed in the industry, right? So they provide critical services for the public, and it's good for us to be involved. And there's probably another one that we've not added on here yet, but we work intrinsically with mobile network operators, because for us to be able to deliver the services that we have, we need to work with the operators as well, because we're encompassing hardware and network connectivity all in one. And probably a good success story to call out is our partnership with Vodafone. Like, we do a lot with Vodafone, where we buy connectivity from them, incorporate it into our hardware, and sell it back through to their customers. And this partnership has been around since the inception of CSL. So we've been intrinsically linked. And we've recently collaborated on a project with Vodafone, where they chose us to be their partner to deliver the network and hardware that goes with it for the National Lottery project, which is seen as one of the UK's biggest IoT projects. So we're working in the background to get all of that built and delivered, and over the next few years that will start rolling out to around 40,000 sites, which is a massive use case for us to go out and deliver. And again, I guess if we're talking about the level of security needed, I mean, this is at the high end of IoT security. And as I mentioned at the start of the course, so one of the other bits that I collaborate on as part of my role as in CSL is I also work with the UKDSE. So I'm doing a project with the UKDSE at the moment, where we're creating a brochure that highlights the capabilities that we have in the UK from a security perspective. So from the CSL side of things, it's our managed router proposition, but also we're encompassing other members that we supply and support connectivity to, that have got solutions that protect critical national infrastructure sites across the UK. So this is not just another connectivity company or another hardware supplier. We've got a very strong niche and a need for security, and we're working across all of the key areas across the country and other countries where we're trying to drive this message out around the importance of having secure IoT, either hardware or connectivity or whatever that is powering on the end of it. And we're kicking off a similar project with JSAR, another department from the UK government. And this is having a view of some of the projects that they work on, where we can get involved and say, actually, you shouldn't be looking at these type of devices, because if we're looking at the angle from a security perspective, we believe that these are the best in the market, and this is what you should be looking at. And that's the thing, it's all about collaborating and raising the awareness of what secure IoT solutions exist in the market. So in terms of what our solutions are, and I guess the big interest from this group. So I guess we've gone about the market a different way to what most players in this market do. So I guess everybody has been educated into the market. We're talking from a consumer perspective, whether it's consumer customers or corporate customers, to say, actually, you need to have a platform for a device where you've got lots of control, you self-manage everything yourselves, or you need an app to be able to do it. We're sort of fighting against that model, right? So our model has been that actually we have our own hardware, our own routers, which are not web accessible. So we see having web accessible platforms as that vulnerability, right? The vulnerability to get into a network and to compromise the hardware or the network that sits behind it. So our routers actually don't have a web accessible device management platform or a configuration platform that you can make changes to. It's not publicly web facing, so it's all built into our infrastructure, and we control all the configuration and all of the control that sits behind it. This, I believe, for IoT is a massive USP for us, because we're literally fighting against everyone who's doing the other way around. Whilst that other way around can get to the level of security we have, the challenge always is how do you convince people to spend the money in getting it to that stage, right? So they'll buy, like the common branded routers and devices from the suppliers or distributors. Most of the time they deploy it as is, right? So they'll buy the router, they'll create a username and password for the device management platform, they'll stick connectivity in there, and they use it for whatever use case they're going to connect that up to. For us, with the message is actually we do all of that. So even in our own business, I've got my colleagues on the call. I myself don't have access to this configuration platform. It's these guys and the teams that they work with that are the only people even within CSL that have access to be able to configure these devices. So we've got a small team that manages them, but it's scalable because we had something really bespoke made for us so that we can manage scalable volumes of these devices. So, like I mentioned on some of the big scale projects we've worked on, our team manages that, and we pre-configure everything, send it out. So when the customer gets it or the users get it, it's a simple plug and play solution. It's not something that they need to sit there and configure and control. And for us, the benefit of that is that we can reduce the vulnerabilities coming into the device, and also the network that is then powering the device. And for us, that is fundamental in this industry, right? So for us to be able to provide these services, I mean, if I look at the business that we do with the security companies, where we're integrated into their monitoring stations, and then they're using these devices to power CCTV or other use cases, that's the big USP that we have, is that where we go out and configure everything, we send it out. They haven't got to worry about that ability of having that vulnerability exposed by end users. Because again, intrinsically, you'll get end users who'll get routers, they'll see complex Wi-Fi passwords and they want to start making changes to them to start putting things that they remember. But on this, they can't do that. We reconfigure and control all of that. We set out what the credentials are, and it's all locked down, which is something really, really good for us. And I guess the key challenge for us is how do we educate the market on this way of doing things? Because this way of doing things doesn't cost more. It's not really expensive. It's not that they're having to outlay lots of investment doing it. It's the education piece that it exists. And for IoT, this should be a model that lots of other hardware vendors and connectivity suppliers deploy. So that's, I think, we hope that that's something that you guys hear that is really different in terms of what everyone else talks about. And I believe that for us, this is the USP that we've got that has enabled us to win some of these projects that we're in with some of the big customers. And this is the avenue that we're pushing down and trying to grow, and hopefully others follow suit, and we can have a similar model by working with different vendors. So I guess questions? It'd be good to understand if people have come across something similar.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Michael's got a question there for you.
Web interfaces are bad thing. On one hand, I agree with you in that every dollar you invest in a pretty web interface for the marketing people is a dollar you're not spending on security. So I applaud you for being so courageous that way. On the other hand, Mirai didn't spread through web interfaces. It spread through OpenTelnet demons, right? The major advantage for most customers of the web interface is that the web browser is a relatively well secured environment, and with a little bit of intelligent training, they don't balk at a complicated password because they know that the web browser will keep track of that for them. On the other hand, Windows 11 still doesn't come with an SSH client by default, right? You have to install it. It's available from Microsoft, but you have to install it. And to me, that would be great if there are other ways of managing it. But you said it doesn't cost anymore. Well, no, but there's a real significant cost of training to the end users that it seems like you're not really taking into account here. Maybe they just don't need to mess with it. Okay, in which case that's fine, right? I mean, people today, people don't have to configure their SIP phones. The service provider does that. They do it through DHCP and a variety of semi-proprietary configuration systems. And the fact that the self-configuration of your SIP phone on the handset is a disaster that no one should ever have to go through is irrelevant to the situation, because we have management systems to do that. So I guess the question is to me a little bit like, who cares how secure your router is? I want to know how secure your whole system is, and what's the integration that you do between your routers, which you're providing, and the devices behind them. Like, is there some protocols that you are deploying? You said proprietary APIs. Does that go all the way from the routers to the actuators, or what is the involvement in the first place here?
I see.
Great. Well, thank you for watching. And if you want to know more, just get in contact with us and we'll provide you all the information you need. Thanks very much. The details are on the slide next door.